Rome called itself eternal until Persia proved it could bleed. At Edessa, the unthinkable happened, and an emperor fell to his knees. The desert wind tasted of iron and ruin. Across the scorched plains of Mesopotamia, the legions of Rome dragged themselves eastward. Tens of thousands of men wrapped in tattered cloaks, armor caked with dust. Above them burned the sun, pitiless and white, watching the empires might dissolve grain by grain. At their head rode Emperor Valerian, once hailed as restorer of the world. Now his eyes were red with sleeplessness, his lips cracked from thirst. Behind him marched the ghosts of an army, the remnants of campaigns that had begun in triumph and sunk into chaos. "Antioch is ashes," murmured General Macrianus beside him. "Samosata lost. The Persians strike faster than we can breathe." Valerian's jaw tightened. "Then we make our stand at Edessa," he said. "The empire must see its emperor unbroken." In Rome, marble statues bore his name. In the east, only vultures did. To the south, the banners of Shapur I, king of kings of Persia, rippled in the heat, crimson silk embroidered with the fire of Ahura Mazda. His scouts had watched the Romans for weeks, circling them like wolves. Shapur's plan was simple. Not battle, but erosion. Starve them, scorch them, let despair do the killing. That night, in his golden tent, Shapur studied the map carved into a bronze table. "The lion is sick," he said in Pahlavi, his voice calm. "But even a dying lion bites. We shall feed him sand until he chokes." At Edessa, the Romans dug trenches, raised palisades, prayed to Jupiter. Their armor gleamed faintly under the dying sun, as if pretending the empire still had light to give. A centurion looked at the horizon and whispered, "Why does the wind blow east?" Another answered, "Because Rome has forgotten how to breathe." When darkness fell, torches dotted the Persian hills like stars. Thousands of horsemen moved in silence, their bows strung, their armor shimmering like oil. In the middle of that endless plain, Valerian looked toward the lights and said quietly, "So this is how empires end. Not with thunder, but with dust." The sun rose red over Edessa, a burning coin suspended in a sky of brass. Beneath it, the Roman camp shimmered with heat and dread. Dust clung to every wound, every prayer, every breath. From the northern ridges, the Persian banners glowed in the morning light, thousands of crimson flags snapping like flames. Cavalry lines curved across the horizon, perfect and unending, until they surrounded the city on all sides. Rome was trapped. Valerian stood atop the ramparts, watching the enemy's quiet precision. "No movement wasted," he muttered. "Even their stillness is discipline." General Macrianus joined him, sweat darkening his cloak. "They block every road. Our scouts found the wells filled with sand. They know we are thirsty. They know we are proud," Valerian answered grimly. By noon, the Persians began their dance. Riders advanced in small bands, loosing arrows, feigning retreat, drawing out the impatient Roman cavalry. The legions chased them, shouting curses in Latin, only to be met with clouds of arrows that hissed like locusts. The ground soon glittered with broken spearheads. Horses screamed. Men fell, clutching throats and bellies. When the survivors limped back behind the walls, the Persians had already withdrawn, not from fear, but from satisfaction. They had measured the Roman line and found its pulse. That night, Shapur's camp burned with golden fire. From his pavilion of silk, he watched the Roman trenches through a polished bronze mirror. "They are strong," he said softly, "but hunger is stronger. We will give it command." A priest of the sacred fire stepped forward. "The lion of the west is trapped in the pit. Shall we strike?" Shapur shook his head. "No, let him hear his own heart first." Inside the Roman camp, despair whispered. Water rationed, bread crumbled to dust. Soldiers fought over skins of brackish water. The emperor walked among them in silence, his armor dulled, his face hidden beneath grime. A centurion knelt before him. "My Caesar, the men ask when the gods will send rain." Valerian looked toward the stars, faint and cold above the smoke. "The gods watch," he said, "but they do not serve." Outside the walls, Persian horns called across the desert, long, mournful, patient. And as the sound faded, Valerian felt something break within him. Not fear, but the realization that he was no longer the hunter of the world, but its prey. Night fell heavy over Edessa, bringing no coolness, only the suffocating stillness of exhaustion. The air trembled with heat even after sunset, and every sound carried too far. The cough of a dying man, the restless shuffle of horses, the whisper of dust sliding off canvas. In the Roman camp, the fires burned low. Oil was gone. Rations dwindled. The water cisterns stood half empty, the surface covered in dust that sparkled like mockery. Men spoke little now. Their once proud banners hung limp, their eagle standards blackened by sand. Then, as the moon rose, the shadows began to move. The Persians attacked not with siege towers or rams, but with silence. Their riders glided close to the trenches, loosing volleys of fire-tipped arrows that streaked across the night like falling stars. Some struck tents, others men. The Romans scrambled to extinguish flames, only to find the next volley already in flight. Every few hours, the horns would sound, not for battle but to rob them of sleep. By dawn, nerves were frayed. 2 cohorts had fled their posts. Others muttered darkly of curses, of Persian sorcery. "They do not fight us," a legionary whispered, trembling. "They haunt us." Inside his tent, Valerian bent over maps that no longer mattered. His hand trembled as he traced the thin blue line of the Euphrates. "If we could reach the river," General Macrianus shook his head. "There is no reaching it, Caesar. The Persians control every well and ford. Our messengers to Antioch have vanished. Even the vultures do not fly west anymore." A messenger stumbled in, eyes wide with terror. "My emperor, the men of the 10th Legion are burning their own rations. They say the grain is cursed." Valerian rose slowly. "Then we are already defeated." Outside, the Persians began their next trick. Their catapults hurled not stone but carcasses, rotting bodies of plague victims from captured cities. The stench rolled through the camp like a living thing. Men vomited. Others fell ill within hours. From his golden tent, Shapur watched the smoke curl over Edessa. His priest approached. "You fight without touching them," he said in awe. Shapur smiled faintly. "Why dull a blade when the sun and hunger cut sharper?" By the 5th night, the moans of the sick filled the camp. No songs, no oaths, no orders. Only the rasp of dying breath. The desert wind whispered over the trenches, carrying the faint sound of Persian drums. Slow, deliberate, eternal. And in that rhythm, Rome's heart began to fade. By the 10th day, the Roman camp was no longer an army. It was a graveyard waiting to be filled. The wounded lay in rows beneath torn tents, flies thick upon their faces. The smell of rot and despair hung heavier than the desert heat. Emperor Valerian sat alone outside his pavilion, staring at the horizon. His armor lay beside him, dull and cracked. The imperial purple of his cloak had faded to a dirty brown. 1,000 men still looked to him for salvation, but he knew there was none left to give. Then came the rider. A Persian messenger approached beneath a white flag, his armor gleaming clean amid the filth. He bowed low, speaking Latin with a sharp, foreign accent. "From the King of Kings, Shapur, son of Ardashir. He offers parley. The emperor may come in peace to discuss terms. Life for his men, safe passage to Antioch." The Roman officers murmured, suspicious but desperate. "A trap," said Macrianus bitterly. "A wolf does not offer water to a dying lamb." Valerian turned the letter in his hands, parchment sealed with red wax bearing Shapur's sigil, the winged fire of Ahura Mazda. The writing was elegant, precise. "Come as an equal, O Caesar. Let 2 rulers speak beneath heaven as men, not enemies." A strange calm settled over Valerian. "An equal," he whispered. "Perhaps even Shapur remembers the dignity of kings." Macrianus stepped forward. "Majesty, if you go to chains." Valerian's eyes lifted to the blazing sun. If I stay, I rot among the dead. Rome must see that her emperor faced his enemy, not as a coward, but as one who dared to speak even at the edge of doom. At dawn, he rode out with a small escort. The Persians awaited beyond the dunes, a forest of banners, their silk glowing like fire in the morning wind. At their center stood Shapur, tall and still, wearing a crown shaped like the horns of the sun. Valerian dismounted, removing his helm. "King of kings," he said, "Rome accepts parley." Shapur smiled, not warmly, not cruelly, simply as one who has already written the ending. "Then Rome has accepted truth." Behind him, the Persian cavalry shifted, a subtle movement practiced absolute. Valerian took one step forward, and the circle closed. The emperor's escort was seized in an instant, their cries muffled by blades. Hands gripped Valerian's arms, dragging him to his knees. He shouted, "I came under flag of peace." Shapur leaned close, his voice calm. "And I granted it, peace, as only the dead ever truly know it." The banners rippled in the hot wind as the dust swallowed the scene. Back at Edessa, the Romans saw the Persian host withdraw, not in retreat, but in victory. No messenger returned. And by nightfall, the empire understood. The eagle of Rome had been taken alive. The camp of the Persians shone like a city of gold against the desert dusk. Silken tents, bronze braziers, banners flowing like fire in the wind. Within it, Rome's emperor knelt in chains. Valerian had once commanded 60 legions. Now, he was little more than a shadow in dust-covered armor, wrists bound in iron, his imperial seal torn from his cloak. Yet his eyes still held the faint, stubborn light of power, the kind that refuses to die even when the body has been conquered. Shapur I, King of Kings, sat upon a throne of hammered silver, carved with lions. His face was calm, almost serene, framed by a crown of rays that caught the last of the sun. He studied his prisoner with the quiet curiosity of a scholar, not the hatred of a conqueror. "So," Shapur said softly, "this is the Lord of Rome, the God among men." Valerian lifted his chin. "The ruler of the West," he replied, his voice cracked but steady. "You will not find me begging." A smile touched Shapur's lips. "Begging? No. Rome does not beg, it imagines eternity. But eternity, Caesar, is an illusion. Empires rot like flesh. Look behind you, yours is already bone." He gestured, and guards dragged forward captured Roman standards. The eagles of Legio III and Legio VI, their wings bent, their gold blackened by fire. Valerian looked away. "You think this brings you glory? You destroy men, not ideas." Shapur leaned forward. "I destroy arrogance. For centuries, your empire has marched east, calling itself light. But tell me, does your light warm the dead?" He rose from his throne, descending the steps until he stood before Valerian. The difference between them was not strength, but certainty. "I will not kill you," Shapur said. "Death is mercy, and you came seeking peace. You shall have it as my guest." Valerian's lips tightened. "You mean your trophy?" Shapur's smile deepened, cold as moonlight. "A trophy reminds the world what power looks like." He turned to his court. "Let it be known across Asia and the West, the Emperor of Rome lives and serves." A murmur spread through the gathered nobles. Awe, laughter, disbelief. Valerian's chains clinked softly as he straightened. "Rome will come for me." Shapur looked at him for a long moment, then answered, "Rome will come for your ghost." As night fell, torches lit the camp. From the distance, the Persians sang hymns to the god of fire, their voices low and rhythmic. Valerian was led away, through corridors of gold and silk, past soldiers who bowed mockingly, until he disappeared into a tent guarded by statues of lions. Above him, the stars burned cold and ancient. Somewhere, perhaps in Rome itself, another emperor dreamed of invincibility. But in the east, the King of Kings had already turned the heavens upside down. In the palace of Shapur, the air smelled of frankincense and conquest. Marble halls gleamed with mosaics depicting Persian triumphs. Kings crowned by fire, lions devouring eagles. Every stone whispered of divine right, every arch sang of eternal empire. And there, amid that splendor, Rome's emperor was kept like an ornament of defeat. Valerian's prison was not a dungeon but a pavilion of silk, wide, open, and unbearable. Servants moved past him as if he were invisible, their eyes never meeting his. Guards watched silently from the shadows, bowstrings always half-drawn. Each morning, the herald's horn announced the King of Kings. Shapur would appear before his court. Nobles, generals, and priests arrayed like stars around a burning sun. Trumpets blared, and at the throne's base, a man was brought forth to kneel. Valerian, once robed in purple, now in plain linen, his skin burned dark by the sun, his face hollowed by hunger. When Shapur ascended his throne, he paused, waiting. A hush would fall. Then, with deliberate calm, the conqueror placed his foot upon the emperor's back to mount the steps. It was not hatred. It was ritual, a lesson carved into eternity. The court looked on in silence, some in awe, some in pity. The bards would later write, "The god of the east rose upon the back of the west." Valerian endured without a sound, his spine straight, his eyes fixed upon the horizon beyond the open tent, where the desert shimmered like molten bronze. Pride was all he had left, and it was agony. After the ceremony, he was led to a courtyard to serve wine at the royal banquets. Gold cups trembled in his scarred hands as Persian nobles toasted their king's victory. Some mocked him openly. Others whispered prayers, fearing that such humiliation might anger the gods. Once, a young noble asked Shapur, "Why not kill him, my lord? It would be kinder." Shapur smiled, eyes fixed on the distant mountains. When the world forgets that Rome can fall, they will remember this image, the emperor who bowed. That night, Valerian sat in his tent, his chains resting across his knees. A young guard approached quietly and offered him a cup of water. "Caesar," he whispered, "I am Median, not Persian. My father died under your eagles, and still, I grieve for you." Valerian drank, then handed back the cup with trembling hands. "Do not," he said softly, "grieve only for the world. It has forgotten how easily gods become men." Outside, the Persian drums echoed across the night, steady, unhurried, eternal. And Rome, once the master of nations, now knelt in the dust of the east. The road to Persepolis shimmered in the desert heat, a river of dust winding toward the heart of Persia. Along it moved a procession unlike any the world had ever seen, an emperor in chains leading the triumph of another. Valerian walked barefoot beside Shapur's golden chariot, his wrists bound, his once proud shoulders stooped beneath the gaze of thousands. Around them, the Persian army marched in silence, their armor glinting like a sea of flame. The drums beat slow and deep, the rhythm of conquest echoing off the mountains. From every village, people came to watch. They threw rose petals and coins before Shapur, chanting, "Shahanshah, King of Kings, Lord of Light." But when their eyes fell upon the weary figure trudging in the dust, the cheers faltered. An emperor in chains, even as an enemy, was a thing that unsettled the soul. At night, campfires lit the desert like constellations. Valerian sat apart, hands tied, staring into the flames. One Persian guard approached hesitantly. "You once ruled the world," he said softly. "What does it feel like to lose it?" Valerian's gaze never left the fire. "Like watching the sun set," he murmured. "You think it will rise again, until you realize the light is not coming back." By the time they reached Persepolis, the city glittered like a vision from myth. Palaces of lapis and gold rising from the earth, stairways carved with armies of stone. The people lined the avenues in their thousands. Shapur rode at the front, crowned in silver and light. Behind him, bound to a post upon a gilded platform, stood the Emperor of Rome, living proof of divine victory. Trumpets sounded. The priests burned incense to Ahura Mazda. Heralds proclaimed, "The gods have favored the sons of Persia." Rome's eagle bows before the fire of the east. Valerian bowed his head but spoke no word. He refused to give them tears. In the great hall of Persepolis, Shapur mounted his throne, carved from obsidian and inlaid with gold. At his feet, Valerian knelt. The king looked down and said, "This is how the world remembers balance. The West devoured the East for centuries. Now the East feasts on its arrogance." He turned to his courtiers. "Let artists carve this moment in stone. Let Rome's humiliation stand beside Persia's triumph." As the artisans set to work, chiseling marble reliefs of the kneeling emperor and the radiant king, Valerian closed his eyes. Some said he prayed. Others said he dreamed of Rome, of marble and rain, of children running beneath statues that now mocked his name. And when he opened his eyes, he saw what Shapur had built. Not just an empire of men, but of memory. A throne of ashes, gilded in eternal flame. In the blazing heart of Persepolis, the sound of chisels rang through the mountain air, sharp, rhythmic, almost ceremonial. Hundreds of artisans carved beneath the open sun, sweat glistening on their backs, as if the gods themselves demanded haste. At the center of the scaffolding stood the image that would outlive kings and dynasties. Shapur the Great, astride his stallion, radiant in his crown of fire, and before him, kneeling in the dust, Emperor Valerian of Rome, arm outstretched in feudal submission. The relief grew day by day, its marble surface shimmering like water in the heat. It was not merely art, it was scripture written in stone. From his shaded balcony, Shapur watched the work in silence. Priests of Ahura Mazda stood behind him, chanting hymns that praised divine balance and cosmic justice. "The lie of Rome is ended," they intoned. "Truth has returned from the east." One young sculptor hesitated before the unfinished face of Valerian. He turned to the overseer. "Shall I carve fear or dignity?" The overseer glanced toward Shapur, who listened without turning his head. "Carve both," the king said. "Let the world see that even gods can kneel, but they do not break easily." That night, when the workers slept, Valerian was led past the half-finished monument under guard. Torches flickered across the smooth, cold surface of his own likeness. For a long time he stared, not at the kneeling man, but at Shapur's horse towering above him. "So," he whispered, voice hollow, "this is immortality, a prison even death cannot open." The guard beside him said nothing. A breeze swept through the courtyard, scattering sand across the carved figures. For an instant, the torchlight made the stone seem alive. Shapur's face burning with divine triumph, Valerian's eyes filled with endless defiance. When morning came, the people gathered to witness the unveiling. Trumpets sounded. Incense curled toward the heavens. Shapur addressed the crowd. "Let all nations behold the fate of arrogance. Rome sought to master the world. Persia masters eternity." Cheers thundered across the city, echoing against the palace walls. And above them, carved forever into living rock, two empires faced one another. Conqueror and conquered, light and shadow, bound together by the vanity of kings. As the sun set over Persepolis, its last rays touched the marble relief. The fire in Shapur's crown blazed gold. Valerian's bowed form sank into shadow. And in that balance of light and darkness, the memory of power became legend, and legend prophecy. For the stone endured, but the fire would one day fade. When the news reached Rome, it did not arrive as a cry, but as a whisper. A lone courier staggered through the gates of Antioch, his cloak torn, his face blistered from the desert sun. He carried no banner, no orders, only silence and a broken seal bearing the name Valerian Augustus. In the Senate, the message was read aloud. The words were few, almost impossible to believe. "The emperor has been taken alive by Shapur, king of kings. The army of the east is destroyed. Edessa is lost." The chamber fell into a hush so deep that one could hear the wings of doves beating outside. Then, slowly, the whisper spread through the forum, through the markets, through every marble corridor of the eternal city. The emperor was a slave. For centuries, Rome had crushed kings beneath its heel. Now its own ruler knelt before a foreign god. Panic turned to outrage. Statues of Valerian were torn from pedestals, his name chiseled from triumphal arches. "He shamed Jupiter," cried the priests. "He has angered the heavens." Others murmured darker fears, that the gods had abandoned Rome altogether. In the camps of the legions along the Danube, soldiers threw down their standards in disbelief. Veterans wept openly. "An emperor captured?" one muttered. "Then no man is sacred." At night, the city burned with feverish rumor. Some said Valerian had been flayed alive. Others swore he served as Shapur's living stool, forced to kneel so the Persian could mount his horse upon the back of Rome's pride. Whether truth or myth, the wound was mortal. From Carthage to the Rhine, provinces rose in rebellion. Pretenders to the throne proclaimed themselves saviors. Gold lost its value. Oaths lost their meaning. The eagle standard that once cast its shadow over the world now trembled in foreign winds. In the temple of Jupiter, an old senator fell to his knees before the altar. "We called ourselves eternal," he whispered, "but eternity has turned her face away." Somewhere, in a distant palace, Valerian's son Gallienus read the news and said nothing for a long time. Then, at last, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Father, you are not the only one in chains." And across the empire, as plague, war, and rebellion devoured what was left of order, the great eagle of Rome, the bird that had once flown above all nations, folded its wings. The empire still lived, but its soul had been taken east. Years passed. The desert shifted, swallowing roads, palaces, and names. Empires that once roared now whispered in forgotten tongues. Yet in distant Persia, amid the ruins of triumph, one man still lived, the emperor who had outlasted his own eternity. Valerian. Time had stripped him of all titles. His hair was white, his back bent, his wrists scarred where chains had long been. He no longer served wine or bore insults. He simply existed, a relic no one dared to touch. Most Persians believed him dead, a ghost wandering Shapur's palace gardens at dusk. One evening, as the wind carried the scent of burned cedar, Valerian sat beside a dry fountain. The walls around him were crumbling. Ivy crept across the marble lions that once guarded Shapur's throne. A young servant approached quietly. "Old one," he said, "the king of kings is dying." Valerian's gaze did not lift. "Then he learns what kings are," he murmured. Later that night, torches flickered within the royal tent. The great Shapur I, conqueror of empires, scourge of the West, lay pale beneath silk sheets, his breath shallow. Around him gathered priests, generals, and sons. When the emperor entered, escorted by guards too young to remember his name, even the murmurs fell silent. Shapur opened his eyes and looked upon his captive, the man whose humiliation had crowned his glory. "Rome's god," he whispered, "still lives." Valerian bowed slightly, his voice soft but steady. "And Persia's king still dies." A faint smile crossed Shapur's lips. "So we are equal at last." The two men, once titans of the world, regarded each other in silence. Then Shapur turned his gaze to the ceiling, as though searching for his eternal fire, and the breath left him. The priests wailed. The court trembled. But Valerian only closed his eyes. "The dust claims us both," he said. After Shapur's death, the court scattered. His sons fought for succession. Temples fell to neglect. And one dawn, when the guards came to the garden, the Roman captive was gone. Only his chains lay folded beside the fountain, half buried in sand. Years later, travelers spoke of an old man seen walking west through the desert, barefoot, silent, following the sun. Some said he reached the ruins of Antioch and died there. Others swore he vanished into the dunes, finally free. In time, even the relief at Persepolis faded, its carvings worn smooth by wind and centuries. The face of the kneeling emperor blurred. The king's crown crumbled to dust. But when the light of evening touches the stone, one can still glimpse two shadows, a conqueror and his captive, locked forever in the same gesture, pride bending before pride. And the wind that passes through those ancient halls seems to whisper the only truth either ever learned. All empires kneel, only dust endures.